Hello, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. All right, I just want to give everybody a few minutes to log in. We had 400 people register for today. 400 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of people, but usually about 50% will show up. And even with that, with it being Valentine's Day, I think a lot of people just signed up because they want the recording. So welcome. All right, so I had a little bit of a technical difficulties getting started, so everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Great. All right, so welcome to our first Paralegal Growth Hour. Let me go through just a few things first, in case anybody didn't pay attention to the emails. But also, I just want to make sure. So if you can keep your system on mute unless you raise your hand and get called on. I am going to go through the questions that were submitted first because people were kind enough to take the time to write those out. So we'll go through those first. For those of you, well, first, let me introduce myself. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Ann Pearson, and I'm the founder of the Paralegal Bootcamp. My new little sign back there. um, and I decided to do these paralegal growth hours with one thing in mind and one thing only, which is how to grow your career. So if you didn't read it in the email, one of the questions or the groups of questions that I won't be covering is job searching and how to get your first entry level paralegal job. And I'm sorry if you didn't read that in the email, but I want to make sure that that's clear. And the reason why is because there is so much content out there online that's available for that. And if we get into those kind of subjects, we'll literally take up the whole hour talking about resumes and job interviews and how to break into your career. And I have lots of that stuff on the website. So please go visit the website. There's lots of job search stuff on there. One thing that I want to note is we are recording this and I'm going to upload this to the YouTube channel. So if you don't want yourself on video when you're asking your question, you don't have to be on video. If I won't show any of that on the YouTube channel, I'll ask you first. If you were on video with a question, I'll ask you before that, but otherwise it'll just be audio for that. If we're doing live questions, if we can get through all of the ones that were submitted and we do live questions, I may set my timer just to keep it at 3 or 4 minutes, mostly so I stop rambling. And the other thing is, if you guys are in the chat, I want you guys to chat with each other too. If I'm answering a question and you guys have input on that particular topic, jump in the chat, and contribute to that. That being said, also, if you're in the chat and you see scammers or bots, I don't think that we'll have a problem with that. But if we do, we may have to adjust how we all enter this room. But if you see that, can you please point it out to me? Because I don't have anybody on my team helping me today. It's just me. I wouldn't make them do a Saturday work day. So, hi, Laura. I recognize Laura. Hi. Let me see what else. I wrote a list of things to make sure I don't forget. Um, Okay, that's it. So I'm going to pull up the questions first. We had 10 or 12 questions that were sent in advance. And the reason why I love that, if you guys want to be able to do that next time, is I will still pull you up if you want to elaborate on your question. So it's not that you can't participate in that way. It's just if there are a bunch of questions that are similar, I can group them together in one topic. And if I see a particular topic where it would be more advantageous for me to refer you somewhere, that's helpful as well. All right, so hopefully this won't look too bad with me looking into the screen, but I have them all in an Excel spreadsheet for me to read. All right, I'm going to read them word for word, and I'm not going to read your name there's a way in the submission where you can check the box that says don't use my name. I think everybody except for maybe one or two people said their name could be used. So this one's going to be a quick one Dedria, Dedria. Hi, Dedria. If you're on, and you want to jump in the chat or jump on the video, um, I don't have the screen pulled up. I've got this on one side of the screen. All right, so she writes, as a paralegal, could I potentially represent myself and my grandson in our Social Security appeal? And what would that look like trying to establish functionality? Are there words that paralegals use that the judge favors more? And then she gives me some more context that's kind of personal, so I don't think she meant for me to share that with you. Anyways, um, Dedria, I can't answer that. I have never done Social Security claims or appeals. I have no idea. So unfortunately, I can't answer that one. But if someone else can and you want to jump in the chat and address that to her, one thing that I would like to note, though, regardless of the feedback that you might get in the chat, you mentioned as a paralegal, so I'm assuming that you're currently employed as a paralegal. So if that's the case, then you should most definitely check with your employer first to make sure that that's not something that's prohibited. That would be my main caution. Okay, next one is Antonina. Antonina has been in several of my courses. Hi, Antonina, if you're here. So she says, I'm an estate paralegal working in a small firm that handles estates and real estate. The firm only has 3 attorneys and 2 paralegals. I am the only estate paralegal working with 3 attorneys, and everything is a priority, of course, with no other staff support. The workload is overwhelming and I am burned out. I have tried your methods from the RISE course and it does help when the other attorneys are out of the office. How can I manage a heavy workload where there is no teamwork and the attorneys do not want to hire additional staff members and you're stuck doing it all? Okay, I'm going to jump back over to the Zoom room and see if Antonia is on. If you're on and you want to jump in, Antonia, you can. So my advice, and I think this relates to everybody. So first of all, I would say if you're, and I recognize a lot of people who are members or who have signed up for the courses, if you're in a course, we have coaching calls. So in the litigation boot camp, the AI boot camp, the Bill Blair boot camp, and Rise, I have group coaching calls where I come on and do this, and people who are in the course can ask questions. So if you have a course specific question, please do that there. You'll get a lot more detail, right, than when I'm trying to answer all these questions and hundreds of people are on the call. But I think that this relates probably to what a lot of people are dealing with, right? Everything is a priority. Your attorney says, it's my stuff first or just get it all done. So I think this will help, just generally speaking. Make them choose what the priority is. If you have, so what I mean by that is they've given you, you've got all this stuff to do for these 3 attorneys, no help. They refuse to hire additional help. That's their choice, right? They're the business owner. But then make it their choice to choose what it is that you work on because you only have so many hours in a day. And where I see paralegals get in trouble is when they take it on and think if I just work longer, if I work this weekend, I'll be able to finish it if I work till 8 tonight. And you're putting all that burden on your shoulders. And if you don't say something to the attorneys, maybe they don't even realize how busy you are, right? You're keeping that all internally instead of sharing it with them. So I would say, okay, these are the 6 things that you guys have given me to do today. I need to know what the priority is because from the looks of it, I'm probably only going to be able to get through 4 of them and give it to them because you guys probably have heard me say this before. They're not going to remember when something goes wrong, when something gets filed wrong, when something is late. They're not going to remember or think to themselves, well, maybe we gave Antonina a little bit too much work this week. They're just not going to think that. So please write it out and have them choose what they want for you to complete. I love that you guys are all jumping in the chat. I love that. Okay. And if anybody wants to add anything, if you're also struggling like that, working with several attorneys and everybody's work is a priority, please go ahead and jump in. I don't see Antonia on the call yet. Well, I'm only seeing 30 people here today, so this is good. Let's try to get through some of these questions. So that tells you how many people signed up. Holy cow. I get it, you guys. By the way, I did want to say this too. I apologize for this landing on Valentine's Day, but what I really wanted to do is pick a Saturday a month where I knew I was available every time and that didn't fall within like a holiday weekend or something like that. So, I mean, obviously today is a holiday. Monday technically is a holiday too, so maybe some of you have Monday off, but I wanted to be consistent so that you would know, you wouldn't have to ask, well, what time is it next month and when is it next, 2 months from now? It's going to be the second Saturday of every month at 12 p.m. So thanks for joining me on Valentine's Day. Anybody get any nice Valentine's gifts this morning? Jump in the chat and tell me. Okay, I'm going to jump on to the next one. Next one from Beth. I'm not going to say anybody's last name either. Beth V, who is a legal assistant. So she's asking, what is the best way to keep up with deadlines, not only court deadlines, but client deadlines? And then she gave some context, which I also won't read. From the context, I'm going to answer it that I would suggest you have to put it all in one calendar. Everything, the attorney's vacations, your vacations, appointments, client deadlines, whether it's appointments outside the office, appointments inside the office, one master calendar that has everything it's a small firm, everything for you and the attorneys that you work for in one master place. Now, they can each individually, if you're working for more than one attorney, they can each also have a separate one, but have one master calendar that has it all in one place. Now, the key to that, though, is you have to get into the habit of checking it, not just checking it every morning, right? But check it that morning. What are the deadlines for this morning? But you're also checking it for what are the deadlines next week? What do we have coming up next week? So that if we have a deadline that is on Wednesday, but we realize that the attorney is going to be out of the office the previous Monday through Friday, then we know we might want to work on that stuff the week before. So one master calendar, check it every day, but you're not just checking it for your daily work, you're checking it for at least a week out, more than a week out if you see some vacation time in there. The other thing, and it sounds like it being at a small firm, the other thing that I use Asana, ASANA, the project management board, and that has a calendar view in it as well. So you could have projects, case files, deadlines, all of that in one place. So you might want to think about that. It sounds like being at a small firm, you probably don't have a docketing system, so I won't answer for that. I'm going to try to get through a couple of the questions, then I'm going to jump back into the Zoom room with you guys. Okay, next question from Terry J. And I know Terry is a female because I've known Terry. If you're on, jump in, Terry. So Terry asks, what's your thoughts on a 17-year litigation paralegal with experience in personal injury/civil litigation transitioning to a totally different area of law, such as real estate or becoming a corporate paralegal? Pros, cons, challenges, suggestions for doing so, etc. I'm at what I feel is maxed out in terms of salary or opportunity for growth in my current environment. So my first question would be to ask, do you not want to work in litigation any longer because you're bored, you don't like it, or just for the salary perspective? Because their answer would be different for all of them. So you mentioned growth in your current environment. So I'm assuming that that means that you want to stay at your current firm and that maybe you're thinking about transitioning to a department in your same firm. If that's what you're talking about, then the pros would be you wouldn't have to take a pay cut probably. Because on the flip side of that, if you're thinking about leaving that firm as a litigation paralegal and going entirely into real estate or corporate or whatever, you're going to take a pay cut. There's just no way around it. Now, it won't be as if you're an entry-level paralegal because you at least have that 17 years of transferable experience and working in a law firm. That's important. But it will be a pay cut because think about it. You are going in as someone who knows nothing about corporate law or real estate other than what you've encountered in litigation. So that would be the big con to me, especially because you mentioned, I think you mentioned in here, yeah, maxed out in terms of salary. I think if that's a big part of your question, switching practice areas is not the answer to your question. If the bigger part is I'm bored or I don't like doing litigation anymore, then I might also ask, could it be the practice area that you don't like anymore? Because you could move into a completely different practice area, still keep that 17 years of experience, and be able to challenge yourself and maybe even increase your salary. Because depending on what side of civil litigation, so you said personal injury slash civil litigation, so I assume it's a lot of personal injury. It's been my experience that a lot of those firms have a lower pay area than some of the other areas of litigation. So that would be my pros and cons. There's even challenges if you stay in your own firm and go to a different practice area. So I would recommend if that was part of your question. In fact, I'm going to jump in the Zoom here and see if Terry's on the call. Raise your hand, Terry, if you're on the call. No? Okay. Well, so that would be my general answer. Without a lot more context, it would be hard to tell. But again, I wouldn't, for pay, I wouldn't recommend it. I would only recommend it if you're just, I'm bored. I don't want to do litigation anymore. I'm sick of it. I don't even care if it was a different practice area. Then just understand that your pay will take a hit, unfortunately. Next question. Okay, this person doesn't want me to use their name. How do I deal with an attorney that will not adapt to modern procedures, such as using Word redline to edit documents? My attorney does not edit any documents digitally. He expects me to print any discovery or pleadings or any document, even after a minimal edit, to be reviewed again. They also have bad handwriting that is very difficult to read. All these things make my job so much harder and tasks take me way longer to complete. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Anybody else dealing with that? So let me start with the easy one. If their handwriting is difficult to read, don't guess. Go to them. Make the only way that you're going to be able to know what it says. If you can't read it, instead of guessing, go say, I can't read this. Can you tell me what this word is? Because it's just going to come back and bite you. And if you're guessing and you're making that edit and then you guess wrong and you have to bring that paper back in for them to edit, they're assuming that you just got the word wrong, right? Instead of you can't read their handwriting. So that's what I would say. That's the easy part. Don't guess. It's going to come back to bite you one day and it's not going to be good. They're not going to catch the word that you got wrong during that review process, that final before it goes out the door. They're not going to catch what's going to be your mistake. And your mistake was you couldn't read the word. So don't guess. The other part is a little bit harder. And I'm sorry, not all of my answers are going to make everybody happy. You're not going to modernize an attorney. You're not going to, and this goes for everything, whether it's getting them to move forward in technology or getting them to stop doing something or whatever. My advice always is you can't change them. All you can change is your response to them. I don't know how old the attorney is. I mean, maybe they were trained. This is what I'm guessing because I've worked with some attorneys like this. Maybe they were trained in 1982 And that was the only most efficient way to be able to get things done. I'm assuming from what you wrote that you've tried already to show them how much quicker it would be to use the red line inside Word. If you haven't done that, at least try that, okay? But go into it with the mindset of, I might not be able to change them. So if you can't change them, then what do you do? Unfortunately, you have to do it how they want it done. If you can't change, at least suggest the red line. My other question, I guess, bigger question that kind of comes to mind when I read this is, every firm evolves. We all evolve. There's a lot of technology out now. We won't even get into AI, although I think there was a couple of AI questions. But um, I would ask, is that the way everything is done in your practice? And if so, then be careful about, I've said it before, I think I've said it on the podcast, of don't let your technology skills be at the level of the oldest partner in the corner office. Okay. So if this guy doesn't like to even use Word redline, everything has to be printed in paper, then I'm assuming if you're in litigation or even you're doing due diligence, none of it's being done electronically. It takes you twice as long to do things. That's a pain. But my bigger concern is that you could be limiting your future career options by not keeping up with technology. So that would be my priority for you. If you can't change them, you still got to keep up with that technology. Use it in whatever way you can and learn how to use it, even if you're not using it at your current firm. Okay, next one, and then I'm going to switch back and check in with you guys. I don't have my second screen in here. I'm in my separate recording room, so I don't have my separate screen. Normally, I could have you guys over here. Okay, this is from Jennifer L. And you know what I noticed? I thought I remember seeing this. There's two Jennifer. This is what's funny, you guys. There's two Jennifers who submitted questions, and both of their last names start with an L. The likelihood of that, right? With 12 questions that were submitted. So I'm hoping that you'll recognize if it's you. Okay, so Jennifer L is a paralegal, and she said, this was on your list. So I put like those sample questions of things that we might cover. This was on your list, but I'm totally stealing it if someone hasn't already, because I run into this frequently. How do I handle unclear expectations without sounding difficult? I'm fortunate enough to work in a position that's 100% remote and frequently get instructions via email, even for large projects which are not clear. Ah, who else is dealing with that? Don't give me a hand raise because I'll think that you want me to call on you, but just jump in the chat if you're dealing with that. Unclear expectations. This makes me think of the metaphor. This is what I want you to think of with when you're lacking instructions. You know how if you were to search for a house for sale, like if you're hunting for homes, I remember this a few years ago, and you type in the zip code and your price range and what you're looking for and all that. And they only give you like a radius, like a 1 or 2 mile radius for safety reasons, right? They don't want people showing up at random houses or whatever, maybe if it's for sale by owner. But anyways, imagine you're searching for a house that you've got to find right away, right? Maybe it's a rental. You've got to find a house to rent right away. You jump on Zillow, you find these houses, and you follow Zillow's 1 to 2 mile radius. How much longer is it going to take you to find out which house that is? And when you do find it, are you even going to be sure you found the right house, right? It's could be this one with the for sale sign, or it could be this one that's 3 blocks over with the for sale sign. So when you're getting those unclear instructions, think about that. How much extra time is this going to cost me? And so then, okay, well, what do I do about it? So first, try to go with the assumption. I want to like have everybody have an open mindset about this and think to themselves, maybe these attorneys never learned how to properly delegate to a paralegal. And when I say that kind of jokingly because maybe is most definitely. Okay. They don't teach them how to delegate. They don't teach them how to manage staff. The only way those attorneys know how to give you work is what they observed maybe when they were first starting out practicing law. So keep that in mind. Second would be, it's funny. I was just talking about this the other day with somebody who was training attorneys that when you're a decade or two in, and you can relate, right? If you're a paralegal who's been doing it 10 or 20 years, when you get that far in, if you're dealing with someone who's a little bit older, you forget the steps that it took for you to get from A to Z. And so sometimes when you're delegating to someone, if it's been a long time since you've done that, you do it now automatically. You forget that in between A and D, there were three other micro steps that you took. And so when you're explaining it to somebody, you forget to explain those. So I say those things to you to hopefully open up your mindset about maybe not blaming them. Trying here. All right, but now let's go back to what do you do with it, right? I would, since you're 100% remote too, I would reply to the email. You get the unclear email. I would love to have seen an example, but I know we can't do that. I would say reply to the email and say, just to confirm, your email was, your email asked for me to get this, and have it to you by Friday, and you want it in 3 hole punched notebooks, whatever. Get specific in your reply to them. So just to confirm, blah, blah, blah. So then that way, that gives them the opportunity to say, no, no, that's not what I wanted. In fact, I want it in spiral bound and I want it by Thursday. And it's also not saying to them, hey, your email was unclear. Could you explain to me what you meant by XYZ? So that would be one way to do it. Um, then with large projects, one of the things that I would do with large projects, especially because you put that in there, do one thing or a portion of that large project and bring it to them and say, I'm going to use deposition prep notebooks for an example, because you might be doing a lot of them, right? You've got 10 witnesses. You get through that first witness notebook, bring it to them and say, is this what you had in mind? Is this how you wanted this? So that before you get halfway through the project or way into the project, then you can get more feedback on what you're doing. But whether it's the number of notebooks or if it's one project that can't be split up or whatever, you get through a few documents that you've reviewed or you've summarized something. Do on any large project, this I would recommend this, even if the instructions were clear. I think even if the instructions were clear, you should early on say, is this what you had in mind before you go off and do 10 more notebooks and they're all wrong and you have to redo them. All right, let me jump in real quick. We've got lots of people in the chat. So if you're going to ask a question and you want to come on, I'm going to actually, because we've got time, we're getting through these questions good. I'm going to do a couple questions from you guys first and then go back to the other questions. But if you have a question that you don't want to ask where you come on and ask me, put it in the Q&A. There is a Q&A, right? Because I got one question in the Q&A. So put it in the Q&A because I can't read all the chats. Okay. Victoria, what is the path if you want to become a contractor or freelance paralegal for law firms? Actually, Victoria, I'm glad you asked that because someone else submitted that question. So this will be the answer to both of you. Let me get her name too. Hold on. I saw something about a freelance in here. Rachel. Rachel also asked, as a freelance paralegal, how do I avoid scope creep from clients? What's the most professional way to handle this situation? So, two different questions, but about freelance. I have never been a freelance paralegal. I have never owned a freelance paralegal company. I have no idea how to be a freelance paralegal. So, but what I would recommend that you do, I know somebody who does, and that's Jacqueline Foster. Her first name is Jaclyn, Jacqueline Foster. She would be, I'd almost consider her like the goat of freelance paralegals because she has a whole business around teaching people how to create freelance paralegal businesses. I don't. So definitely visit her website. I even thought I saw on LinkedIn that she had some kind of very like affordable membership type thing. So definitely do that. Okay. So if somebody has a question that they don't want to submit and they want to come on, raise your hand so I can find you. Or do you guys want me to finish with these questions? Okay, I see one hand raised.
There was one in there about AI, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, was
I
it
think
in the chat
it was
box?
in the chat. I think it was Aaron Knapp. I think he asked something
Oh,
about,
he raised his hand. Okay.
yeah, sort of our responsibility, with
Okay.
anyway. I thought
Okay.
you could answer that one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I work with an older attorney who I jokingly call, a dinosaur. And I laugh because he does use older technology. And we've had a lot of discussions revolving around AI. And I've had some discussions with him also in researching case law. I've found a few pieces of random case law that were AI ghost sites that made it through the courts somehow. They were made like it got into a some lawyer's thing, and so I found it and I started looking. So now when I look for case law, I literally go online and will double, triple check every piece of case law. I don't care if it's in VLEX. I want to make sure it's in Justia. I don't care if it's in Justia. I want to make sure it's in VLEX, right? Like it's incessant. And I feel like for those lawyers that it's twofold. For the ones that are dinosaurs, it's beneficial. You think about them, they rely on case law that they know. They rely on stuff that's hard copy. They're cut off. It's that whole idea that you've got someone cut off from the network. So sometimes those people aren't so bad to have around because they're going to go, all right, well, what's this case law you're talking about, right? They're going to start asking you. So as paralegals, we have to start looking at and questioning what is our responsibility to do the extra search, to do the extra mile, to ensure the case law that we're looking at when we're utilizing these modern technologies is actually up to standard. Are we double, triple, quadruple checking to ensure that we're not feeding ghost case law that some other person didn't do their due diligence on? And there's a lot of AI classes coming out now on law, talking about you've got open source AI for just for lawyers now. So, where does that balance come in? And then now you've also got all these courts that are digitizing. So they're going to have to learn to come into the modern age. But AI kind of is scary in that aspect, in that it can put you on what is your legal obligations, responsibilities. How could this affect you as a paralegal? I guess that's the whole question. Like with AI, the way it's proliferating the profession.
Yeah. And it's only going to get worse. So I have an AI boot camp, right? AI boot camp for legal professionals. So I'm going to throw that in there.
I did not know that, so you should put that in the chat.
Yeah.
My attorney is the one that put me onto you. He sent me the link to your this.
Oh,
Like he
really?
said, maybe you should, because again, I'm encouraging him to be more digitally responsible. So when he sees things like this pop up in his email, he's like, "You might be interested in this," and he sends it to me, even if he doesn't understand it.
Well, I got to say, he's not as much a dinosaur as you claim then, because that's
No,
awesome
well,
that
it's he only likes the hard copies. Like you said, okay, so everything I send him has to be triple spaced because he wants to print it out. He is not going to use Word, he's going to use a red pen.
Mhm.
And I've talked to some other people about that, and they're like, why can't you just look, just print it out in triplicate, use the red pen, and take a picture and send it back to me. That's fine. That's the kind of stuff he's done. And I'm trying to convince him to update his computers, his networks. A lot of attorneys are working off outdated systems. They have outdated laptops. They're not running off proper security, and it puts them and their clients at risk.
Hmm.
But yeah, that whole mentality, he's getting there. He's educating himself. He realizes too that that courts are digitizing and getting modernized as well, and so it's either move forward with the times and or not survive. So
Yeah. So we could have literally a whole discussion on AI. I've got, there's a couple questions, and in fact, that was similar to what you said. So one of the things that I would refer you guys to is I did a free AI masterclass. It's recorded. Um, it's on the website. I'll bet you if you were to Google the words Ann Pearson free AI masterclass, it'll come up. It should come up. Um,
And it had the words future proofing or something in it. So if
yeah,
it had
yeah.
something
So
like that,
it's called the three-step plan to future-proof your paralegal career. Good call, Laura. Oh, Aaron just found it. Okay. I would highly recommend that you watch that. It's about 45 minutes. But in it, what I do is I give you, here's three steps that you can do and why, most importantly, why you should be doing it. And then if you can't join the AI bootcamp, I give you a downloadable do-it-yourself workbook on how I did it because I started using AI for my own business back when it first came out. And I also didn't understand how much it would help me. And in the beginning, I did not think that it was anything to worry about for paralegals. But a couple years in, thought, oh, okay, I need to do something for them because this is coming after them. But all that to say, I don't want to scare anybody, and we don't need to get into a whole hour-long topic of it. But just like everybody else says, I'm going to repeat it. I was saying it a couple years ago, but AI is not going to take your job. It's the paralegals who know how to use AI who might take your job. Not take your job either. Here's what I mean. The way I see it, there's always going to be and mostly it would probably be small firms just based out of a need, a budget limitation where they will say, oh, okay, if we implement these AI tools and we have one paralegal who knows how to use AI, that will allow us to only have one instead of three salaries, right? There will always be firms like that. What I'm seeing, what I have been seeing the last year, is that firms are saying we're going to get our paralegals and associates up to speed on AI because now we can take on more clients. We can bring in more money, not contract and say we only need this. It's no, it now what our three paralegals, we're not laying off two of them so that because one can do the job, we have three paralegals who can do the work of five, which means we can bring in more clients. So that's truly where I see it going. Just like if you go back, depending on how long you've been in the industry, you could go back to every new technology that has come out from the internet, word processors, right? Computers were supposed to take secretary jobs back in 1989, you know? So I just think it's people getting used to it. And I think we're really going to see. So, uh, back to you, Aaron, real quick. So I know we got
I
into an
would
AI
just close and
discussion, but
say,
was there a question that I missed? I
no,
want
I just wanted to close and say I agree with you on that. My thought in talking about this is to generate the conversation that AI is like anything else, a tool. And if you
Mhm.
use said tool in an inappropriate way, you're gonna have problems. Like if you pizza when you're supposed to French fry, it's not gonna be a good time. So, you bring a hammer to hit a nail. You bring a screwdriver to bring in a screw. You understand that AI is fallible. It's like you have to teach it like it's a child. And
Mhm.
you have to use it like it's a non-animate object. Like, okay, I'm gonna let you help me format this, but I'm gonna double check everything you do.
Yeah, there's an actual, I don't remember the name of the site, because this is so what I do in the AI boot camp. So you have access to the on-demand course, but then I do group coaching calls every other month. Those are not necessarily like these where it's about, well, it can be, but it's mostly let's stay up to date because it's changing so quickly. It's what's happened in the last month or two. And in either the last one or the one before that, I found a site that this scholar keeps where he lists all of the sanction orders that have been out and whether it was a pro se person or an attorney, and then what the sanctions were based on them. And what you see in there, and I've seen it personally because I have sued someone, and the other side is an attorney and it's for my trademark that they're using my trademark. And they submitted a motion to dismiss that was riddled with AI citations, right? And it wasn't just, and this is the big thing I want to warn you guys about, it wasn't just that the citations were fake. There were some citations that were real, but what he was citing that case held was wrong. That part was made up. So there was an actual, this is the case law, this is what it, blah, blah, blah. But what he was saying that the case said had nothing, like it was literally almost the opposite.
Yeah, they
Like,
call it, it's not hallucinations, it's authority laundering. It's like the idea that it looks real, but you're either getting the holding wrong or, like there's something off about it. It's not a totally made up case, which would be like hallucination, but the authority laundering is actually even more dangerous these days because it can look legit. So you
mhm.
have to double check that. So you're absolutely right that that's
It
happening.
creates those very things you're talking about that I found. I found what looked like a legitimate case. It was in another lawyer's thing. I went to cite it and I looked and I was like, no, this is a case, but that's not what it says.
Oh, and you found that in a citation.
Yes,
Someone
but it
cited.
was only on one website, one place. It slipped through on one place, and I just in that one instance, because I always double check, and when I went back later, I couldn't find it on any other website, but I could still find it on that website, and I was like, that's not good, because that means that's that first step, that's the first bridge of an invasive species getting into the legal like
Yeah.
water.
Wow.
So here's for everybody who's new to AI, I'll give you this input real quick that'll help you when you're going through and you're thinking, because if you're not using it, you might be thinking, well, see, so then why would I even bother to learn it? Why would I even? The reason why it's doing that, the reason why all of them do that is because they want to please you. That they literally want to, and that's why whenever you're using AI, here's a quick tip. What I put in a lot of mine now is I'll say, let's spar about this. Do not agree with what I say just for the sake of agreeing with me. I will literally put that in my prompt because if you guys are using it, tell me if you've seen this. You say, hey, I call him Roby. Hey, Roby, I've got an idea. I want to blow up my business and just stop selling courses and I want to start a gardening business. How does that sound? He will say, and that sounds wonderful. Let's work on a 10-step plan to get you started tomorrow. You know what I mean? It because it does. It wants to please you. And so it knows that case law needs to sound legit, right? It knows if you use it enough, it starts to know what kind of business you're in, and it's going to sound official and real to you. So you got to love it. We get some good stories, I'm telling you.
I yell at my AI, so I know when AI finally takes over the world, my AI is going to come after me really quick. Every once in a while, I make sure to say please and thank you in
Uh-huh.
hopes that it will remember when it finally does take over the world and terminates us all. So it'd be like, this one we can enslave because at least he was polite.
I've argued with mine too. So mine, but it was a perfect example. I use it in the AI boot camp is I said to three different AI tools because I wanted to see which one was going to give me better results. I gave it, act as a senior paralegal who functions like a senior associate and draft me a trial prep checklist that includes everything I need to be doing from 90 days out for trial and do it in a timeline. One of them, and the reason why I did that is because I have a trial prep checklist in my trial prep boot camp and in the litigation boot camp. And so I could compare it. I wanted to see what it's going to do, right? And so one of them gave me, keep in mind, my list has something like 120 things to do. One of them gave me a list that had like 19 things to do. One of them gave me one that had 40, and another, I think the best one had like 72 things to do. So I said, all right, well, you know what? Maybe they're different. So then I fed all three of those into Chat GPT, which at the time was my favorite. I'm kind of leaning more towards Claude now, but fed it into Chat GPT and told Roby, merge these three without and delete the duplicates so that I don't have duplicates and tell me which ones are more complete. So it does that and it sends me back a list that only had like 50. And I'm like, that can't be possible, Roby. The one had 74. You're doing something wrong here. Oh, I'm sorry, Anne. Let me try again. So it goes in. And then the next list had even less. And I'm like, Roby, stop it. You're frustrating me right now. Please do this, compare this, blah, blah, blah. I had to stop. I was getting so upset. I'm like, oh my God, I'm mad at my computer. So I printed them all out. I figured, all right, I'm just going to do it by hand myself. Printed it all out, looked at it, compared it. Everything on the list was vague, it wasn't specific. And here was the point that I made. The reason why AI is not going to take all of your jobs, and the reason why AI couldn't put together a trial prep checklist like mine, is because AI has never been inside a courtroom assisting at trial. It doesn't have real world lived experience and context to be able to apply what it needs. So, yeah, are there going to be some cheap firms who just don't want to hire extra people and think that they can just have their associate jump into AI and print a trial prep checklist? Sure. Let them do it and let them get into the courtroom and realize they're missing half the stuff that they needed, And then, I mean, because sometimes you have to learn your lessons. So that's my take on it. All right. I know we're running. Hold on. I want to get through a couple more questions. We might go a few minutes over in this one. I'm going to try not to. But going forward in the future, I will set the timer so that we can get through as many questions as possible. I've been on some coaching calls and stuff with like entrepreneur ones who do that. And I found it helpful so that they can get through more questions. At first, I thought it was annoying, but this is a good one. I really wanted to get to this one. So we got through Rachel's freelance. I'm going to come back to you, Vincent. I saw that you're on here. I'm going to come back to you in a minute. Jessica, how can I gain confidence in my work? I've been doing paralegal work for over 3 years and I still don't feel completely confident. I love this question. It came across when I saw confidence, I had to jump in there. So first of all, Jessica, at 3 years, I don't think I didn't feel confident. You guys jump in the chat and tell me if you did. I did not have, not the level that I needed, at least. I was a lot more confident that I was doing things right, but I was not completely confident. I want to say until, oh, gosh, it's been so long, guys, 30 years. I don't know, maybe year five or something like that. But more importantly, this is what I want you to walk away with, Jessica, is that I've seen this in some of my coaching calls before. Confidence is not a personality trait. Confidence is not about, oh, I'm outgoing or I'm not an introvert, I'm an extrovert, none of that. Okay. You might look around and think that you see that in other people, that they're confident because maybe they're an extrovert. Confidence is a byproduct. Confidence is what is the result of you consistently, reliably, and regularly successfully completing tasks and doing it right. So instead of looking at it like I've got to get confident by a certain time point in my career, don't even listen to me about year 5, okay? It might be year 7 for you. So how do you do that? How do you have to go get more training if you haven't. I mean, that's the reason why I started the paralegal boot camp, because there is no person, no paralegal I've ever met who out of school walked out of a paralegal certificate program and was a rock star paralegal on day one. They weren't. You either do it the way I did it, and a lot of people in the 90s before there was online training and stuff, you did it by learning from your mistakes, making a lot of mistakes, errors, just trial and error until finally, and a lot of hard work, working a long time and reading. Like I remember every night and every weekend, and I know Laura does this because Laura and I have talked about this, reading everything I could about whatever area it was I was working in. I mean, way too much, but that was the only thing that I had available at the time in the early 90s. So you have to do something more that if you want it quicker, okay? You can if you're one of the lucky unicorns where you've got a really good mentor, a senior paralegal who's holding your hand, or a really good attorney who's training you, then you can get by without it. But if you don't have that, there's only two routes. The longer path, make trial and error, make mistakes and learn from them. If you work with an attorney who's good with that, who's okay with that, understanding that you're brand new, then that's not a bad way to go. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. But I would recommend either, get some books, take some classes, because every time you do an assignment, every task, every project, and you hand it in and you get a high five, or you at least don't get yelled at, right? That was back when I was a paralegal. The only way I knew I was doing it right is if they weren't yelling. So whatever it is, every time that happens, it's just one more peg in that step to get you up to the level where you feel confident. Um, okay. Haley, what can I do to make it easier for my attorney to review my drafts? I often prepare drafts for review and my attorney gets bogged down with research and or review of emergency matters. The drafts I have prepared take a backseat and I often run low on billable work while I'm waiting for his review. I love the word billable. I know you guys probably find that weird, but anyways, the reason why I love the word billable is in this situation, it's an easy fix, right? Because it sounds like that's your problem. You're waiting, and so you're just sitting around waiting, and now you've got low billables. My answer is don't sit around and wait. Be proactive. Um, Look at whatever, I don't know what practice area you're in, but let's say it's litigation. Okay, it could be litigation, real estate, corporation, corporate, whatever, and map out what those files, what's typically happening in those files from the time it gets opened to the time it gets closed, and try to put them, the things that you're doing or have done in these previous ones, try to put them in 3 or 4 main categories or phases, right? Like in litigation, there's the pleadings and motions phase, there's the discovery phase, there's the pre-trial phase, there's a trial phase. Put them in 3 or 4 big categories, buckets, and then in each of those buckets, list out what have you done on those files before? What are the things that those attorneys are bringing to you that you have to then wait on for the next thing? And say to yourself, or go talk to them about it and say, I see that on these types of files, this is what's usually being done. I'd like to be able to get started on this stuff before you have to ask me to do it. Or what I always say is just do it. Just be proactive. There's not an attorney out there who ever will complain that you're too proactive. The next one, Jennifer L, the other Jennifer L. And this is why I think that they could easily tell whose question this is. How do I handle an attorney who is very proud of his federal clerkship and holds that level of expectation of writing on a paralegal with little writing experience? He knows I have little writing experience. He has given my writing work off to associates, who he also redlines to federal clerkship writing standards. I didn't get an increase this year because of my lack of writing. My attorney is one of the partners. Also, your question on handling unclear expectations would be great. Okay, good, Jennifer. So you already got that part answered. Okay. This one sounds kind of like an easy one to me because here's the tension. I mean, he's holding you to a standard that you weren't formally trained on. You didn't go to law school. You didn't have a federal clerkship. That being said, okay, so go into it with that mindset, but not from a negative place. Go start with a positive place, right? And say, okay, well, if I'm going to stay here and work with him, I know it sounded like you didn't get a raise last year, so you're disappointed. But if you stay and work with him from his writing standards that are unreasonable for you to have, you will become a better writer than 90% of your paralegal peers. Guaranteed, right? If you're learning from those lessons, you're literally learning from the top of the top how to write. So that would be a positive if you can get through that. I wanted to throw that out there just because I did think that, I learned how to get really good at appellate briefs at one point because I worked for a pain in the butt attorney who, yeah, that's the way she wrote. And gosh, she was the worst procrastinator ever. But I learned so much about appellate briefs that I never would have otherwise learned. So you could think about it like that. Um, but then you've got to address okay, I didn't get a raise because he thinks you've got to talk to him about it. You've got to talk to him, do the master the courageous conversation. I did a podcast episode on that and a LinkedIn newsletter, I think. Um, so you have to start the conversation with, I know I'm not as good of a writer as you would like me to be, right? You don't have to say I'm a bad writer. You're probably not a bad writer. You're just not as good of a writer as he wants you to be. I know I'm not as good of a writer as you would like me to be, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to learn if you're willing to be patient with my mistakes. To me, that's the way to do it. If you want to do that, if you want, you got to really enjoy writing if you're going to do that. If you're the type who likes to do, that's the other thing, right? For everybody, I will say this to everybody, is sometimes we think that we're not a good paralegal or even a great paralegal. Sometimes we think that only because we're working in a practice area that we really don't enjoy or doing in a practice area that has a certain type of work that takes over a good portion of our day, and we don't like doing that part of work. So I hope that helped, Jennifer. Is Jennifer on here? I hear some feedback here. No? Okay. Oh, good. People are jumping in there with advice on writing skills. That's one class that I don't teach, but I can give you a referral. I have not personally taken her courses, but I know she teaches writing. What is her name? Anybody? Jackie Van Dyke? Jackie Van Dyke. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's her name. I think her business is called the Paralegal Writer. So she has a couple of courses on it and she teaches, right? Yes, Van Dyke. Posted the link. You guys are great. Okay, so I've got to get through this last question and it's Vincent's. Um, let's see. Where did Vincent's question go? Okay, so he's got a couple of questions. And if anybody has to jump off, I understand it. I won't be offended. We're gonna end it quickly. So Vincent asks, is moonlighting in other practice areas or volunteering typically frowned upon? I work in personal injury defense and would like to volunteer in an immigration practice. Vincent, hey, Vincent's been on my podcast, by the way. He did a great episode on helping with burnout, meditation. Okay, so there's two different things because wasn't clear. Moonlighting, meaning I'm assuming you mean for a different firm. If it's for a different firm, yeah, that's frowned upon. It's going to be hugely frowned upon. In fact, if you really like where you work now, I wouldn't even ask. I wouldn't ask because here's what's going to happen. They're going to think, well, he's got so much free time, right? He could maybe learn more skills in this practice area. He could do more for our clients, and or the conflict of interest will just be, they'll say it's not worth it to them. So if you're thinking about doing it for another firm, I wouldn't even ask, Vincent, to be honest. If you're thinking about it because you've got a big enough firm where that's a practice area in your firm, then yes. But only if you're really caught up with the work that you've got going on and you make it clear to those people that this is just a side gig, side hustle. Um, his next question, what is an accurate resource for salaries as a paralegal? There are none. I'm sorry, Vincent. There are none. So there's now NALA does a survey. And the IPMA, the International Practice Managers Association, does a survey. You won't get access to that. They only give access to it to paralegal managers and directors who are members of the IPMA. Here's why I say there's not an accurate one. I don't know if the ALA, the Association of Legal Administrators, does one. When I was a paralegal manager, I was told by HR, you can't use NALA's numbers because they're not verified. They're not verified through a service. And because of that, they could be submitted by paralegals who are just trying to falsely raise paralegal salaries in their area. I know that I don't know that I necessarily bought that, but so they only allowed me to use the IPMA's salary. Now, here's the thing. The only people filling out the IPMA salary survey are people who are members of the IPMA. So they're big law firms. They're not representative of all sizes of law firms. I don't, at least back then. I shouldn't speak. I don't know right now if that's the case, but you wouldn't have access to it anyways. Here's the bigger thing, the bigger takeaway that I want for you though is because you can cut and slice and dice and dissect those salary ranges, salaries, things any way you want to make it fit whatever you wanted, right? To show, oh, I'm being underpaid, or oh, I'm being paid well, or this is what I should ask for this new position. Instead of thinking about that, stop comparing yourself to other people, what other people are making, what you should be making, what you could be making, and all that, and ask yourself, what do I need to make first? Like level one is, what do I need to make to pay my bills and live comfortably? I don't care if that number's $20,000 above some salary survey, right? If the salary survey says paralegals with this experience in this region at this type of firm make $50,000 a year, and you can barely get by. Like you got to put stuff on credit cards in order to buy groceries at the end of the month. You're not going to like your job. You're going to feel resentful. Um, and I remember thinking this as a paralegal manager. When someone would apply for a position where they were coming from a firm, let's say they were coming from a firm maybe making 80 or $90,000 a year, and they were applying for a position that was maybe 70,000 max, they would try to convince me that they were willing to take that pay cut just to get into our firm or get into our practice area or whatever. And I would never hire them because I know what happens when you live comfortably at 80 or $90,000 a year. $10,000, $20,000 a year cut, that's a lot. that's a lot. Even if you have a spouse to help make up for it, that's a lot. But I mean, this was a single person. So ask yourself, what do I need to be comfortable? Now, if you're new, right, 5 years and under, it takes a while to get to a point where maybe you can do that. Not always, but once you get to a certain mark, that's when your salary starts really, really bumping up. Those first few years are hard. I know they're hard. If you enjoy the work that you're doing and you really enjoy the firm and you think this is going to be worth it to stick this out, even though it's below that comfort number, and you want to get a side job or something to make up for it, then do that. But if you're taking a job that you know can't pay your bills, that you know you're going to have to get a side hustle, and you know that it's going to be impossible to work there because things happening, at the attorneys there, or there's no benefits, or it's just a bad work environment or a bad commute, like all of those things are piled on top of each other. That's just a recipe for disaster. So beyond just the money you can work with for a few years, maybe. But also maybe there's a lot of work and there's overtime too. Okay. Um, that's it. We got through all those. Let me put that down on my screen and check my Q&A box. Do we need to include in our engagement letters when AI is used for research and or drafting? That's from an anonymous. That I'm not going to answer because that's going to depend on your firm, your state bar association's ethical guidelines, right? I would first go, so start there. I always tell people, always go back to the rules, right? Laura can tell you that in the litigation boot camp. I'm like, go to the rules, go to the rules, go to the rules. So start with the rules, right? Is there any rule? Probably not. Is there a state statute that's been put in place that addresses that? Probably not. Then what about regulations, bar associations and places like that? I would start with your state bar association's ethical guidelines. I'll bet you there would be something there. And then it's really just the best question is, what is ethical?
Like you literally tag team me at the same time. You said ethical. Just as I wrote that, I was like, wow, all right. Yeah, it's just about ethics. Like ethics is such a hard question to answer. As a social worker, it's the core of what we do. And so I always say, what's ethical? What can you live with? What can you close your eyes at night and sleep with?
Yeah. Yeah. But there are both ethical guidelines and commentary in the Bar Association's rules. So I would definitely check those. So far, everything that I've seen is that it's a rule, either that or the clients are asking about it. And I just saw an article yesterday about clients saying, or they met at some in-house counsel conference or whatever, and they're all complaining and saying, we're not seeing any breaks in our bills. These firms say they're using AI to be more efficient, but we're not seeing any breaks in our bills. So, all right, let me just double check. So I got the questions out, check the chat. We lost a few people. I'm going to have to, wow, there's a lot of chat here. If you have a question in the chat, you need to tell me because I'm not going to be able to go back through this. I will.
I got a question, Ann.
Who did?
Vincent.
Hey, Vincent.
Hey, I was actually coming at how you doing? I was coming at the question of the salary that I posed earlier from a different perspective.
Okay.
When I transferred law firms, I was actually given a raise of about $20,000 because I went through a recruiter. Now, I wonder if I was to get a job by myself or get another job somewhere else, in other words, if I lost this job or had to move for whatever reason, would that salary be like the norm at other law firms or wherever ever else?
Again, it doesn't matter what the norm is. It's what you want. And that's the other thing, you guys. If you got a big bump, you went from 60 to 80, maybe you were under market before, right? So now your new baseline is that 80. So to make a move, you got to bump up again. Part of the growth, right, of your salary is going to be to take advantage of those bumps. Don't ever, ever, ever go back down once you've gotten up. Never. That 20,000 increase is your new low. Good question. And technically, I guess I shouldn't have answered that because it was more job search and stuff, but Vincent's been with me for years. He's taken courses, he's been on the podcast. Do you remember the name of that podcast episode that you did, Vincent, that I can refer them to?
Yeah, it was called how to instantly lower your stress level. But
That's right.
it was
Stress. Yeah. And
it's
it was
based
sometime last year, right?
yeah, it was based upon the idea or concept of mindfulness. For my webinar that I created for you, and as a creator, I forget what it's called, the creator content that we worked on years ago.
Right.
It was called the webinar I created back then was called Practical Mindfulness for Paralegals, but we morphed it into an interview on YouTube.
Yeah, so if you guys want to have like a meditation thing, he led us through a short little meditation to help reduce stress level in that podcast episode. So if I think about it, well, let me write that down. When I send out the recording and stuff, I'll put that in there.
Thank you, Anne.
All right, guys. So I'm going to let you guys get off to your Valentine Day celebration, whatever that is. I'm not doing anything. I mean, I'm married, but I'm like, don't buy flowers, don't buy chocolates. It's a waste of money on a day like today. But so we're going to meet. This was great. Real quick, did anybody see any issues inside the chat where somebody was trying to sell something or get you to visit some weird website? Okay.
Before we go, I'm a Saudi prince, and I was just kind of hoping you guys could send me a check. Just I think I found your paralegal. It says want to instantly lower your stress, and it looks like you did 11 months ago.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I linked it in the chat right there.
Nice.
Mindfulness to reduce stress.
Thank you,
I
Aaron.
like that. As a therapist and a social worker, I will say out loud to all of you, always, always take care of your own mental health. If you're not taking care of you, you can't take care of others. That's why the stewardess always tells you to put on your mask before you help others.
Exactly. That's a good way to end today. Put on your mask before you put on your other masks. All right, you guys, I hope you're going to join me next month, second Saturday of the month, 12 p.m. Have a great month.
Thank you
Bye.
so much for doing this.
You're welcome. I'm glad to see people's faces.
Thank you, Anne.
Tell your attorney, Andrew, thank you for referring. Hey, Cindy. Good to see you. You look great.